Well, hello, Santa Clara Unified Community. This is Jody Muirhead from your Board of Trustees, and I wanted to talk about this week's board meeting on February 10th. I'm a little late in recording. It's been a busy week, and I wanted to make sure that I read over everything and get an idea of, I want to get my own understanding and also identify the items that I think you might be particularly interested in. So the agenda, just for those of you who don't know, gets finalized 72 hours ahead of the meeting, which is Monday late afternoon. And at that point, the agenda is set by legal code. We can't change it at that point. And then there's hundreds and hundreds of pages to read on every agenda. So I've been pouring through that the last few days. So I thought I would just do a quick highlight of some items that I think you might be interested in. So I am going to share the screen with our board agenda so you can see that. There it is. And there's just a few things. There's a lot on the agenda, but there's a few things that I wanted to highlight for this week's board meeting on the 10th. So one of them is, let's see, where did it go? Okay, COVID-19 update. So as we've been doing, we'll get an update from staff on any changes that have been made to our policies, our safety plan around COVID and testing, all those things, how it's going. I know that the numbers are going down. That's great news. We still have cases, but they're going down. So we'll be getting an update from our staff and ask them some questions. Then in consent, which are action items, things we're taking action on, but we do them all in one grouping because they're fairly routine. But I wanted to just point out this one I'm kind of excited about because it's an amendment to the agreement that we have with Code to the Future. And Code to the Future is a group that is helping with computer science curriculum at a couple of our schools. So we've got Sutter Elementary and Montague Elementary working with Code to the Future to bring in a really strong computer science program to those elementary schools. And the idea is to teach our teachers so that then they can teach others. And we've been doing this for a few years, and it was supposed to go through the end of this year, but because of COVID, we had to stop a year. So this is just to extend that agreement. So we're continuing on with Code to the Future. It'll go through this year and then next year with the intense training that we're getting from this organization. And then we'll go from there if we want to have them come into other schools or if we want to use our teachers as trainers. I think it's really cool, and the kids do showcases periodically. At least before COVID they did, and it was great to see even the kindergartners doing some basic coding, and then up to the 5th grade where they're doing much more sophisticated coding and robotics, all those things. So glad to see that we were able to work something out with them to adjust for the fact that we couldn't do much of this during COVID. So that'll just be a simple approval. And then under business items, we have a couple of action items. One is we do an annual audit, and we have to wait for the year to close, and then we do our own internal closing out of the year financially, and then we send it off to the auditors and they do their business. So this is the independent audit of our books for the 2020-21 year. So it's looking back, and it looks really good. We've never really had problems with our audit. They did find 2 things, and you have to go way down into this 100-page plus audit document, but they were both COVID related, mostly around reporting some information like around minutes, that sort of thing, of how many minutes that our students were in class for during COVID. And things are changing really quickly, and some of the rules about what we needed to report changed even after the fact. So we didn't have all of the details of the information that the state wanted. It's not a big deal. We'll just move on, and next year we won't have these problems because we are back in class. So I'm not worried about the things that they found. They were kind of one-offs because of COVID, and we'll move on and be back to normal. Then another one right after that is this other action item under business that is to approve an agreement with architects to do a district-wide facility conditions assessment and long-range master plan. So we've been working on our various bond projects. The latest one, Measure BB, we've been doing a lot of work on that. And when we originally were doing the investigations to determine what was going to be in Measure BB, there were a lot of improvements that we wanted to make to our schools, but we weren't able to do them all. And for the amount of money that we thought that the voters would support for that bond. So this is sort of doing a relook at those projects and other projects to see what do we need to do now? What's the condition of our facilities? Are there things that we might want to roll into Measure BB now that we're through a lot of the big projects, or not through them, but we are in progress with them? So we'll have a better idea of if we have some money left from those projects, what we might want to do. So this is a long process to look at district-wide what the condition of our facilities are. Remember, our schools were mostly built in like the 50s, 60s timeframe, and we've done remodeling and brought them up to code. We had a bond that did the high schools. We had another bond that did elementary schools, to sort of freshen them up. But now that's been, I think it's been close to 25 years since we refreshed our elementary schools. So we want to look at all of our properties and see what's next, where do we have holes, and what do we need to work on from a facility standpoint. So so that's coming up on the agenda for approval to start work on that. And then sort of a related topic is under planning. We're going to look at the Measure BB projects. So what's been done and what's left on the list to do for Measure BB. And then also look at those items specifically that were originally identified as needing work back when Measure BB was in the planning stages, and understanding what those are to see if those in particular might still be issues, and sort of give direction on how we want to go forward on Measure BB and some of these projects, if that's something that we want to move forward on sooner rather than later. We've had some issues come up of some facilities issues that were not even identified when we were doing Measure BB planning. So now is the time to look at the money that's left for the Measure BB bonds and see where really start that process of where we might want to go forward. So, this is a time too for the community. If you have noticed some issues with a school site, let the board know and the facilities team know, because otherwise we may not even realize. And I think that's part of the issue that we're having lately, is we didn't even realize that there were some problems out there. So once we can identify them, then we can decide, what's highest priority, what needs to get sooner. So that's some highlights for this board meeting. Thursday night, we're starting at 4:30. Oh, I didn't actually mention there's a board study session way up at the top here, board study session on grading for equity. So that's been a project that we've been working on as a board and as a staff, about making sure that we are looking at how we do grading, especially in secondary schools, with an equity lens. So are we being fair to kids who may not, have all the advantages that our other kids have? We don't want to be penalizing their grading, because that can have such an effect on so many things in terms of what classes they can take and what their post graduation plans might be. So there's lots of things that go into grading, and we don't want to be to be affecting a student's future because of some subjective things that are done in grading. So we're really taking a look at that. So we're going to have a study session for an hour as a board to talk about what this issue is and some of the ideas. We have a consultant coming in who's an expert on this and giving us some ideas of what we might be wanting to look for and look at when, as our staff comes forward with ideas about changes that can be made to grading. And there's a whole staff group working on this as well. So we just want to make sure that as a board, we're aware of what the issue is and some ideas for that. So that'll be an hour near the beginning of the meeting after our closed session. And then we'll dive right into the rest of the meeting. There'll be a lot here, but I hope you can join us. Either you can join the webinar as always, and especially if you want to make comments, you have to be on the webinar. And you can also watch the live stream on YouTube, as it's going live, or you can watch it later. All the instructions are in the board agenda or on our website about how to access the meetings and how to make comments. You can also email us comments. So there's lots of ways to get us comments. I'm always interested in seeing what people have to say. So I think that that's it for this meeting. If you have any comments or questions, please reach out, and you can always email me, jmusd@scusd.net. You can, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. You can reach out to me those ways. And I always like hearing from you. So a lot going on, but we're just moving on with the school year. Okay, I'll talk with you all later.